What toxic family story do you need to get off your chest? The time my toxic dad claimed that I was some crazy girl, who just wanted him to be my dad. Let me bring you back to the past, the golden days of MySpace. Facebook is unpopular, and a year before Obama became president. I was 15 years old, and I was just learning how to drive. I haven't heard from my father since I was 7 years old, when he told me I was too ugly to be his daughter. Which I am ugly, but who says that to a 7-year-old? Anyways, I looked up my dad's name on MySpace, and I found him. Also some of my dad's other family like his half-brother and half-sister. Anyways, I sent him a friend request on MySpace, which he accepted. I was so happy. I wrote a message on his wall like, "Hey dad, I started to learn how to drive. I miss you." But he deleted the message after a few minutes, and refused to talk to me. Then being an immature 15-year-old, I wrote on his wall again. This time it caught some attention. Some of his friends, and my dad half-sister were all like, "You have an older daughter?" They thought he only had my adopted sister, and my younger half-sister. What my dad told them, he said, "No, she's a girl I met a year ago when I was meeting my family up in North Dakota, and she's been obsessed with me ever since." Of course I got messages, belittling me of how dare I try to ruin his reputation, and how I needed to get help. I was beyond upset, until I got an idea. I stayed with my grandmother for 2 months every summer, and she had my birth certificate locked away in her safe. I asked her to bring it out so I could see it, and she did. I decided to post a picture of it pointing to his name. With a camera, I took pictures and uploaded the pictures of it, and I sent the picture to everyone who sent me these messages. A lot of people got upset, including my dad's half-sister, on his mom's side, that my dad lied to them all. My dad packed up his family, and moved them to another state, because everyone in their small southern town was talking crap about him. He tried to have a relationship with me later, and my mom tried to force me into one. But I've always been bitter about what happened, and he was bitter with me because he was opening up a restaurant, and his partner backed out for what I did. Was it wrong of me to post the pictures? I didn't want to start trouble or ruin his business opportunity. I just wanted his attention. My brother-in-law is delusional, and has harbored an obsession with me since we were in high school together. This is the same brother-in-law from a previous video and rant post, if you remember him. I've had time to process everything, and the concerned responses I received that let me properly think about how not normal this was. I've decided to chronicle my relationship with brother-in-law here. It's mostly for the purpose of getting it all off my chest as I process. Brother-in-law was the edgy loner in high school. He had a very dark sense of humor, and didn't have many friends. I'm not even sure how we got to be friends, but we grew quite close in my mind. He joined me, and my other friends for outings, and parties. It all sounds cliché, but that's how it was. He was good company for a while. He developed a crush on me that was obvious to everyone except for me. He got very touchy, which I didn't see as wrong at the time, but eventually he kissed me on the cheek, and said I was his girlfriend. I corrected him. I didn't have feelings for him. I had what I thought was a very sincere conversation with him that made it appear that he understood. He did get upset, but I knew what it's like to not have feelings returned. I didn't push it, and we didn't talk for a while. Brother-in-law lied to people about our relationship. He told his mother a warped version of events. When he came with me to parties, he told her I was taking him as my date. When we went out with friends, he told me we were on solo dates. He snuck out of the house at night, and would purposefully be caught coming home so he could tell her he was coming back from my place. Knowing the insinuation, he created an illusion in his head about us having a very real relationship as more than friends. He began telling other people I was his secret girlfriend. He got caught out in his lies, and I ended up confronting him. Our friendship ended for the most part, but I didn't cut him out completely. We still texted, and talked in the halls. There just wasn't a relationship. He tried to be my prom date. I was going with a male friend as a beard. Brother-in-law didn't want to accept that. He showed up at my house to pick me up at prom despite me telling him I wasn't going with him. There was a scene, and my father threw him out. He cornered me at graduation, and told me that he was going to attend Stanford University, which I had initially planned on attending, and we'd be able to be closer together. He didn't know I'd been rejected from that college. I didn't correct him. He was beginning to creep me out a lot with his behavior. I just wanted to put as much distance between my former friend and I as possible. I went to college and met a guy. I already knew the guy in passing. Obviously, you know who the guy is. I began to date brother-in-law's brother. Maybe I was a little at fault for dating the brother of the guy who carried a torch for me, but it's life. Dear husband and I clicked. It eventually led to a marriage, and 2 children. The first time dear husband brought me over to his family as his girlfriend, it was bad. Brother-in-law went berserk, and Mill began her tirades over dear husband stealing his girl. I had to correct a lot. They weren't listening, so they left. Dear husband already knew his brother was full of crap. A month later, brother-in-law came to surprise visit his brother. I was in his room at the apartment he shared with his buddies, and it was obvious that we'd been sleeping together. We were messy youngsters, and it was just clear to anyone who walked in. Brother-in-law got into a fight with dear husband. It got bloody fast. Brother-in-law kept screaming that dear husband was stealing his girl, and that I was cheating on him with dear husband. It got ugly, and the police were called by one of the roommates. Brother-in-law was cautioned for his behavior. Mother-in-law called screaming and shouting. Dear husband and I pushed him out of our minds. It was just the beginning of his obsession. Sister-in-law got people to dress down for my wedding. Here is a bit of background info. Okay, so my husband's older sister is so toxic she glows. She manipulated, and verbally, physically, and mentally abused my husband growing up. She also manipulated, and still manipulates, the rest of the family into believing that my husband is dumb, and 100% dependent on her. My husband is hard of hearing, so the family has no problem believing that he can't survive without her, even though he's a married business owner living 1,000 miles away from her. My husband has a lot of issues because of her, and he's working on healing from the abuse. She's definitely narcissistic, and we suspect that she's borderline, as well. My husband cut her out of his life last year because she stole tens of thousands of dollars from their late father's estate, and slandered, and I'm sure still slanders, his name all over town. But that's another story. Right now I just want to talk about what she did at our wedding. So here is my sister-in-law's wedding shenanigans. She was in an extremely contentious, and turbulent on-again, off-again relationship with her boyfriend, and she had just broken up with him at the time of our wedding. So she was pretty jealous, resentful, and quite a piece of work before, during, and after the wedding. It didn't help that she stayed with us for a whole week beforehand. She treated us like crap the entire time, and having her around just added a lot of unnecessary stress. At the time, my husband had a hard time saying no to her, and I was pretty upset that he let her stay with us for a whole week right before the wedding, because she's the worst house guest ever. She'd leave trash and cigarette butts all over our place, for example. I'm proud to say that he's gotten a lot more assertive since then. A couple nights before our wedding, she got drunk and cried to my husband about how it was supposed to be her wedding. Going by her logic, she's older, so she was supposed to get married first. She then proceeded to tell my husband that she could put together a better wedding than ours for only $200. At the wedding, a few of my family members overheard her, and her best friend, who we graciously invited, even though we didn't know her well, complaining about everything, and bashing our wedding. We had an unconventional wedding ceremony on the top of a mountain, and then had our reception at a luxurious log cabin by a river. We had only 85 guests, and we had lawn games, and a bonfire in addition to the usual wedding stuff. My sister-in-law and her best friend kept saying that our wedding was cheap and tacky. Some of my husband's family members showed up in jeans, t-shirts, flip-flops, baseball caps, etc., even though we didn't tell anyone that the dress code was casual. We suspect that my sister-in-law told everyone to wear casual clothes, because it's totally her with the way she regularly acts. We are still upset that no one bothered to double-check with us. Our dress code was not casual. We assumed that people had enough common sense to show up in semi-formal clothes, so we didn't include the dress code on our invitations. We were really hurt that they didn't consider our wedding a special enough occasion to dress up. To add insult to injury, they dressed to the nines at my sister-in-law's wedding a year later to her on-again, off-again boyfriend, and they stayed until midnight or so, while some of them left my wedding reception right after dinner, without saying goodbye to us. Most of my husband's family members didn't even say a word to me at our wedding. That hurt a lot, too. On top of all that, my sister-in-law didn't give us a gift, but she invited us out to dinner a few days after the wedding as her gift. Turns out she invited a couple of friends she met at a local bar, too, and she flat out ignored me the entire time. Even when I tried to join the conversation, she just pulled the "did anyone say anything? I could have sworn I heard something" act. Some present that was. I was at the point of tears by the end of the night. I wish that I asked my maid of honor, my sister, to gently tell the severely underdressed guests to change into nicer clothes. I actually thought about it at the wedding, but I didn't want to be a bridezilla. They're actually wonderful people, and they traveled 1,000 miles to attend my wedding. I just wish that they had enough sense to not take my sister-in-law's word as gospel. I also wish that they had enough sense to understand that casual wedding attire did not mean t-shirts and jeans. I know that this may be a petty thing to be upset over, but it really hurt our feelings, and we're going to remember this decades down the road. Thank you for watching. My brother molested my girlfriend's niece, and everything is horrible. What do I do at this point? Yes, He's in prison, and will be for a long time. Meanwhile, the niece is receiving therapy. For context, my brother is a lot older than me, and we never really connected, yet he is a mama's boy, and our mother encouraged us to see each other. I obliged because our mother started developing Parkinson's disease, and I didn't want her upset over her darling boy and second son not talking. I've always known my brother to really like chatting up women, and people called him a sex pest creep and a wannabe ladies' man, yet never in a million years did I think he would have a thing for, or do anything to children. People still believe he is innocent. Another thing to mention, my brother is a very confident person, calculated, and manipulative. Very few people can tell he's lying. With my girlfriend we dated for a year, moved in together, and had a generally normal relationship. My brother of course tried to hit on her multiple times, and she brushed him off and told me, which caused major strain with me, my brother, and mother. Especially because my brother and mother tried blaming my girlfriend. Yet I know what my brother is like, and my mother is in denial about it. For a period of time, I banned him away from our house. However, later my girlfriend's sister, brother-in-law, and niece came to stay because her sister was pregnant with a second child, and we were discussing leaving the niece at our place because the baby was going to require surgery and a hospital stay after birth that could last up to a month. We decided to keep my girlfriend's niece with us for the time, especially so the niece could stay with her aunt. My girlfriend and niece are fairly close, so we thought it was a good idea, especially with the baby, while both parents were stressed and worried. Then, my piece of crap brother had to F it up like the asshole he is. My mother started hounding me over allowing my girlfriend's family over, but not allowing my brother over, so I obliged under heavy supervision when he was around. My brother was being mysteriously nice and well-behaved. He also was buying us things, playing games with the niece, so she actually did like him, and was excited when he was around. My brother then decided he was a handyman, and helped with minor adjustments to the house. He would find excuse after excuse to come over, to the point that I was finding it partly daunting. My girlfriend just ignored him, and I didn't realize he was losing interest in my girlfriend at time. When everything came out, the signs became clear, mainly after what occurred. In a very short period of time, my girlfriend's niece started becoming sad, which we thought was because she was missing her parents, so we bought her lots of toys, read to her, took her on trips to the beach, zoo, some shows, let her stay up, watch her favorite shows, and so on, trying to make everything as fun as possible. What we didn't notice was my brother was sometimes alone with her for very short periods of time, which he used to his advantage. It all came out when my girlfriend noticed her niece was oddly quiet in the bath. Her niece is usually singing and splashing in the water. My girlfriend went into the kitchen to get a cup or something. It was only a few minutes. My brother was meant to be outside helping in the garden. I was in the garage when I heard screaming. I ran inside, and my girlfriend was beating up my brother, who was trying to restrain her. I held onto him, and my girlfriend grabbed my niece and locked them in a room, then called the police. My brother was saying he didn't do anything, and accidentally walked in on the niece. Then my girlfriend attacked, hence I knew immediately he was lying. The police arrived and arrested him. We found out my brother was actively grooming the niece, then started getting physical with kissing and inappropriate touching. Then my girlfriend found him molesting her niece in the bathtub. He would use whatever minimal time he had to get to her. Sometimes the amount of time he used was so brief it was like he was enjoying the thrill of possibly getting caught. With the bathtub incident, he was meant to be outside, and like the snake he is, he waited for an opportunity to strike. It wasn't like the niece was left alone for hours on end. The door was left open so my girlfriend could hear her while she went to get something, then come back. The niece is in primary school, and can be left alone for brief periods of time. No one thought he would be doing this. When we went to court, several women came forward about sexual harassment from him. He would target women in his workplace or close by him with behavior that he could try to excuse. He was a peeping Tom, and he would target women when they're drunk offering a ride home or something. It literally came off as a game to him where he pushed boundaries and limits to see what he could get away with. Shockingly, he apparently developed a form of humanity, and admitted to what he did to the niece, saying he has never done anything to a child prior, and wanted to see what it would be like. Just a horrible person. My mother refuses to believe he did it, and I went no contact with her because I'm honestly sick of her crap. I later remembered when my brother and I were children, he was the golden boy, and she paraded him around like an item. He could do nothing wrong, and never had consequences for his actions. It's also the main reason our parents divorced, because she refused to see what she was raising, and wouldn't allow our father to get him therapy. I'm pretty sure she's a narcissist who raised a sociopath. I had moved in with our dad after the divorce because I hated the pair of them. And before our dad died in my 20s, he told me how our relatives would always talk about how lovely and kind I am, yet say they would keep an eye on my brother, while my dad said no matter what he did he couldn't feel love for or from my brother, as if it was just missing from him. That of course scared me almost 15 years plus later when I'm in my 30s, and my brother is almost 50 years old. It was sort of lost on me. Now about the relationship with my girlfriend. We have been sleeping in different rooms with limited talking. Her family basically blames me, and my entire family, and to some degree my girlfriend. My girlfriend told me she cannot face her sister because she feels as if she failed her family, and ruined her niece's life when it's my piece of crap brother's fault. I feel as if I ruined my girlfriend's, and her niece's life because of what my brother did. I'm trying to get us both into counseling or therapy while my girlfriend has requested leave off work and I am preparing to also. After everything was said and done with my brother in prison, being home is utterly horrible and I have no idea what to do to even slightly repair this. This is the first time I've cried in years and I feel terrible for my girlfriend's niece, girlfriend, and girlfriend's family. I do not know what to do next. I also keep wishing I terminated my brother when I had the chance. I have never hated anyone more in my life while I think my mother should be locked up with him. How do I help them recover from this, please? Went no contact with my sister, but I just can't shake this guilt. Despite years of therapy, my sister and I are Irish twins, meaning we are barely 1 year apart in age. My mother's dream was for two daughters to be close and have each other, but it failed miserably. My mother homeschooled us and moved me up a grade to make it easier on her to teach us both the same thing. As a child I didn't know, but looking back I understand now my sister had a learning disability. Instead of finding help, my mom decided yelling at her was the best option. All my accomplishments I was asked to keep quiet to not upset my sister. It all came to a head in our late teens, when my sister viciously attacked me, leaving scars to this day. My sister was emotionally and verbally abusive. I elected to cope with this through self-harm. I was suicidal growing up, and blamed myself for all her problems, thinking that I clearly must be at fault for her treating me the way she did, and I believed a lot of the things she told me about myself. I'm now married and moved out. I'm pregnant for the first time with twins. My sister seemed supportive, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally grown out of it like everyone has promised she would. But she flew into a rage over something very small, berated me for being a burden, and only thinking of myself when she asked me to do something that due to my pregnancy I couldn't do comfortably. I've had a very rough pregnancy, throwing up constantly, being sick, and quickly running out of energy. She went on to imply that my parents feel this way too. She lives at home with them. I came home in tears, and my husband lost his crap. He almost called her to yell at her, but I stopped him because I knew it was fruitless. He had to reassure me I wasn't burdening anyone. I called my mom in tears to apologize for not being able to get along with her, and for upsetting her, and told her if anything I asked for is a burden not to feel obliged, and she talked me down. I said I didn't want to hurt her by not having a relationship with my sister, but I couldn't allow her to treat me like this anymore, and I could not let someone violent and verbally abusive around my kids. She understood, and assured me to only think about my kids, and she would understand. I still feel guilty. It was always my job to make my sister feel better, and I feel like I've failed, which I know is wrong. But I am so scared my twins will grow up like she and I did, with one of them crying, hurting themselves, and praying for death. I've been in therapy a few years about this and I am reading books about it, but I cannot shake the guilt. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.